right, yeah. So, I don't know where to start or how we're going to begin this. We haven't done show notes or nothing, so this will be
No,
fun.
absolutely not. I mean, this is how we normally start. It usually starts with
So,
us in the middle of a chat about something.
yeah,
I think a couple of weeks ago it was what's your favourite take that, or was that on Fiona's podcast? But I mean, that's Realm of Fire. We just sort of chat.
yeah,
So I mean, the best thing to do is probably just follow the old format. We can just talk about what we've been
yeah,
working on, any games we've played, and then just discuss Necromunda, what we want to go going forward, and all that.
yeah. That sounds good.
So we'll just do that, I think. I mean, we didn't even do a welcome. Did we used to do a welcome? I don't think we even used to do a welcome,
No, you
But
went in. You did a cold start, basically.
cold start, just straight in. So I mean, keep all this in.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah. We'll keep all this.
this is gold. Editing is for cowards, as I've always said.
Welcome to the Realm of Fire, where I, Brendan, he, him, and my friend Rob, he, him, drop bombs and braggadocio about Games Workshop games. Content warning. This show is grown men dropping heavy-handed takes about toy soldiers. It's not to be taken too seriously. Also, strong language warnings apply.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
all the
It's a bit
people who
shit
want
now right
listeners.
now with gaming because, it's been good, but
Mhm.
the amount of people I know who've been catching COVID again
Yeah.
is ridiculous. I know of
It's for
one, two, at least two or three people recently, and that's just no, it's definitely three, and that's too frequent already, and it's just like, what is going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's never gone away, has it? What's the John Lennon line? COVID's over if you want it. It never actually finished.
Yeah,
We just decided at some point. But you have got some face-to-face games in, haven't you?
I have done face-to-face games. It's been good. It's all
Yeah.
been Necromunda.
Excellent.
And I think at some point I'm going to try and get a Adeptus Titanicus game in,
Excellent.
or finally play Aeronautica, which
Have
would
you not
be
played
good.
it?
I've not played it. No.
Oh.
Actually, I also got a game of Warcry in recently as well.
Oh,
So
great.
it's all been decent. But yeah, Aeronautica is
Yeah.
definitely on my list. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just there's too much stuff to play and not enough time
There
between
is.
this
You've hit the good
and
ones.
yeah. Yeah, there's just not enough time between this and day jobs and freelance work, which is
Yeah.
crazy right now, and I cannot speak of whatsoever because it's all NDA.
But that. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I
how about
mean,
yourself then?
Let me think. I've been playing a lot of one-page 40k and stuff.
Yeah.
Not as much fantasy as I'd like. I want to get back on the old Sigmar train.
Mm.
Just because I've been listening to the Kragnos book and I was like, yeah, Age of Sigmar's cool. And I was having a chat with someone in head office about this, and I realised the difference between Sigmar and 40k, particularly when you talk about the fiction. And this is going on a little ramble, but this is Realm of Fire. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We're on our new feed, and we just ramble. The
Yeah.
difference is, I think when you pick up a 40k book and you read it, you can picture everything. When they say we're going to get in this Land Raider Mark 4 pattern Indomitus or whatever, I'm just pulling some bullshit out of my head there. There's probably a model for it, and if there isn't a model for it, there's been a model for it in the past. But you can picture a lot of 40k because there's a product. And not to say that the books
Yes.
are just shifting product, but if they mention an Argos light lander, you're kind of like, oh yeah, cool, I know what that is. I know what that model looks like, and I know what that toy looks like. Age of Sigmar is still in the part where there's a lot of stuff that isn't a model, that isn't even in
Yes.
artwork. They're still at a point where they can say, here's a free guild cog fort, and you're just like, I don't know what that looks like, so I'll use my imagination. Cool. What my friend thinks it looks like is different. It's not, here is the cog fort that you can buy in a box. It's, here's a cool
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
in Kragnos there's a free guild company who are basically savages. Yeah, they look like they're basically Dark Oath, but they're sworn to Sigmar. They're covered in leathers and furs and stuff. They just come from the realm of Gur, and they are free guild, but they're not the box set. You can't buy these models. You know, there's no free guild of Gur. And I really like that because it is back to that when the Warhammer worlds were that bit more fuzzy element, you know, where you still have those. What is that? I don't know what that is. So that's kind of cool, you know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's something we've seen with the roleplay games with Soulbound as well. Is that they likely have had to ask some really interesting questions to develop that, because what is day-to-day living in a settlement or city, like who, in other words, who's doing the farming is always the classic question. I mean, that was always it in Warhammer Fantasy, and that eventually those lines, those gaps got painted in, and we have some sense of it. And I guess what we're learning slowly is what is the world of Age of Sigmar like when you're not on the front lines. And that's always the big question, because we only experience through the war games these settings at the extremities, at the big battles, or the or I say big battles, but also like the turning points where it's like the small kill team doing something or something like
the
that.
sharp. You're always at the sharp point, whether it's a massive battle or it's you are an elimination team. There's always you're always in conflict.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I've been on a similar vein. I've been watching the Interrogator series on Warhammer Plus.
Oh yeah,
and we need to talk about this because
we do.
Holy
have yet to catch
crap!
I've watched the first two, and I will get back on. I know now it's just hit season 2 has hit, hasn't it? There's 3 parts of series 1 and series 2. So I've watched the first 2 parts of series 1, and then it's not I'm not watching this. I just have not got back to it. Really enjoy it. Really fun. Really brutal.
Noir, gritty.
Horrible.
Horrible. The 41st millennium again away from the front lines is a shit tip.
Terrible, absolutely terrible. Yeah. But with enough, I think what they've done with Interrogator though is it has enough comedy in it, inbuilt, because it almost, because 40k, 40k is a satire. 40k is stupid. You need stupidity in 40k. It doesn't work if you take it seriously, and it is almost so stereotypical. It works really well. Like, it starts with the private eye who's drunk too much in his office. It literally starts as a Humphrey Bogart film noir, and you're like, no, this works. This really works. It's really cool, and then quickly descends into anarchy and murder. No, I've really enjoyed what I've watched of it. I had Miller from The Expanse in my head the whole time. I can't remember the actor who plays him, but I was like, yeah, that's who should be the interrogator if they did it live action. But yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Throwing down the F-bombs like pretty early on as well. I was like, whoa, this is not 40k I was expecting.
No, not Feth. We're not talking Feth. We're not talking
Feth.
One.
We're talking
the big one, yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
We're talking fuck.
Fuck and everything. Fuck, shit, and bugger, I think.
It's I think that just goes to show that Games Workshop understands, I think, or at least has come to terms with and better understands maybe that people experience the IPs in very different ways at different levels. Just like we've got the kids novels, and you've got 40k, or Age of Sigmar, the kits and the stuff which they send out to like schools and to
the battle
or the
packs.
Scouting, that stuff.
Yeah.
But then obviously they know at the opposite end of the spectrum is there is grogs like us who basically understand that setting is grotesque and grim, and is basically rather Judge Dredd like in that sense. So yeah, it was interesting tonally because I think that just set the scene that this just because it's a cartoon doesn't mean it's a cartoon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it reminds me of old 90s anime. Like, I don't, I'm not an anime person, but the old Akira and Bubblegum Crisis, Crash kind of stuff. Not in terms of how it's drawn, but just that level of violence and stuff. That's what it put me in the mind of.
Things like the Max and so forth. Or
I'll have to trust you on that one because I've never heard
the animated series they did for Spawn way back when.
Oh shit!
That was pretty brutal.
Back in the day. Do you think Spawn is the most 90s of all superheroes? Like, everything about Spawn is the 90s.
Oh yeah, I mean because like it's pretty much that, and it's totally ingrained in how characters were coming out of that.
Yeah. Muscles and pockets.
Muscles and pockets.
Muscles and pockets, just everywhere. Just wherever you got a pocket. No, that is it. And I think Interrogator is something that, I mean, I want to see him. I know he's not on Necromunda, but I'd like a little Interrogator model. Put him in Necromunda, be well good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I went to Warhammer World recently, and the museum has a really nice display cabinet now of models from the literature. Going from Gotrex and Felix to Gaunt's Ghosts to the Spears of the Emperor, and forgetting how much stuff had come from the books. You're like, that's cool. There's a lot there that's pretty cool. Although, hot take of this episode is I think Gotrex is shit. I think Gotrex is a terrible character, and I hate him. And I've never found him entertaining. Just a bad character. Oh snap!
Yeah, I mean, I've got the model for him for Warcry because it's a good model and he has stats of Warcry and he's a beast. He's an absolute fucking monster.
Yeah.
But as a character, he's pretty much invincible, isn't he?
Yeah, and it's very one note. It's very just like, okay, and then you killed everyone. Like, literally, the book could be Gotrek uncovers a plot and then kills everyone, and that's literally every book.
Yeah.
But yes, there are a lot. How do you feel about Cal Jericho?
I can't remember if I've read any of the Cal Jericho novels. As a character, I mean, he's kind of interesting because he's the son of Helmore, isn't he? I think.
Or a spy. He's from the upper crust.
And he's slumming it in the Underhive, and that's pretty cool. I think stories revolve around just him getting into ridiculous scrapes or trying to be married off to someone, and murders occurring. So, I mean, I don't know. I can't really say from not having read the books on him, but I think just as a character, I know in the game he's not anything particularly special. So he's just a typical piece of scum, really. He's just scum.
Yeah,
scum. I guess he's got a Han Solo kind of element to him, who just kind of gets into ridiculous scrapes, and then by the skin of his teeth, kind of makes it through. Which is kind of the characters you want. I guess that's similar to any of the other characters they have, like Caiaphas Cain. Is it? Yeah, Caiaphas.
Yeah, either Caiaphas or Cyphus. I've never said it out loud.
I think it's
really,
Caiaphas.
But, right. The commissar.
Yeah, and obviously there's Gaunt and so forth. I guess those characters are obviously easier to connect with because they are ultimately humans. Even Eisenhorn is easier to connect with, in particular because. Yes. But then Eisenhorn is. Let's just be honest. Eisenhorn is Games Workshop James Bond.
Yeah, pretty much. Or at least, what's his name from the? I should have had that in my head before I even started saying that. Smiley from the. Oh my God, why did I interrupt without that having in my head? The John le Carré novels. Yeah, he is very much the undercover agent, isn't he?
Yeah, and it's going to be. I mean, Bond. Yeah, it's going to be interesting it'll be interesting to see how far they're getting with getting Eisenhorn onto the small screen, because obviously that's in development with
Yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah, that'd be exciting.
That would
I
be
hope it's good. I
really
really
cool.
do hope it's good, because there are too many things that are not good that you wait for. Obi-Wan, that you wait for, and then you watch and you're like, oh, this is a little bit disappointing. So I really do hope that is good, because I've been wanting a 40k thing on telly for so long, and there haven't been any good ones. Like the Warhammer Plus stuff is easily the best, but there is that jump from that to a live action good telly program. There is a big jump, and I'm looking forward to it.
It'll be interesting, because if you think about it's going to give. I mean, for the people that make the show, obviously there's a huge kind of like fan base you immediately tap into. There's already that buy-in from people, you would hope, and so you're not having to hope that you find an audience like you do with other novels and series that get converted over to TV or film. But it's a question of how much they can portray, how well they are able to portray kind of the 40k universe on the small screen. I mean, obviously these days it's a lot easier, and you have to look at how they film The Mandalorian with the whole surround screens that are like digital, that they allow you to get really good immersive fake environments for the actors. So I can see that kind of thing being used for 40k. It's just, can they get the scale? And it's going to be a hard one.
The scale is a very good question. Like that, 40k is so insane, as I mentioned earlier, stupid and insane. You can't just do a church, for example. And there is a scene in a church quite early on. It has to be the Vatican. Minimum, like that's minimum. The smallest you're looking at is the Vatican. Everything has to be on such a scale that it is such an absurd setting, way more absurd than Star Wars. So I'm just using that for the Mandalorian example, but in a way that you need to get across these things. Like I always think the example I always think of is the starship battles when they want to fire a gun. The gun needs to be shifted into place by 2,000 serfs. The shell is loaded by another few hundred serfs, and the targeting computers are lobotomized humans. Like, you need to sort of get that across, that this is ridiculous. This is humanity at its most insane, basically. And that is quite a hard sell. I think you're almost looking at David Lynch, Terry Gilliam style stuff of nothing makes sense. You don't have computers. Computers are hated. What you have is a lobotomized person that you talk to and say, right, I need information on this planetary governor. And that is a human who failed a test or is a criminal and was lobotomized and made into a computer. And that's quite a hard sell, That's not a normal science fiction thing to sell, really.
No, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they can sell that. But I think the other thing is that we have had shows that kind of push the boundary of I don't know, maybe, I don't want to say taste, because I don't think it's taste, but like what you can portray on telly and the extremes of it. I mean, you only have to look at Game of Thrones. Obviously, that has some quite extreme elements to it. The grand sci-fi things, I've not watched it, is what's one on Apple TV? What is it called? Foundation series. I don't know how well received that was. I think it was pretty bad.
I hated it. But it's breaking. And I get your point though. It is something that, and the Expanse, as we mentioned earlier. Things are good pun. Things are expanding in terms of that, in terms of what you can. And these are Amazon showrunners. They're not idiots. And there's going to be money. They know better than we do about how to pitch a television program. So,
and the thing with Eisenhorn is, right, if they're going to go with the Eisenhorn, stories, I think there's quite a lot of room there to like pad them out, because there's that key there's the key plot that goes through all of them.
Mm.
But you can quite with good writers, I'm sure, and there's a pool of writers out there, obviously, who know the setting quite well. You can pad them out and have smaller kind of investigations along the way, more than easily, I think.
Absolutely. And you've got the Beckwin novels to pull from now, because that has some elements before, and you've got like younger Eisenhorn. Oh, easily. The Eisenhorn milieu also encompasses Ravener. It also encompasses Beckwin. You know, I think they can do some really good stuff. I think what's a clever choice of Eisenhorn is how it starts small and gets big, and chaos as an element. And I'm sorry, spoilers, but these books have been out for 20 years. You have like one Chaos Marine, and he only encounters concepts like the warp on screen, by which I mean in the book, only near the very end. So it starts as science fiction murder mystery. Brilliant. Great. That is the way to start in the universe, because you always start small. It's the role-playing game thing. You always start in a small village, and then you learn about the world. That's the equivalent. You start with one investigator, one inquisitor, looking around. Because people don't need to know more about chaos cults than, they're cults of a heretical god. That's actually all you need to know as someone watching these programs. If you don't know 40k, that's it. You don't even need to know
the chaos. You don't even need to know the chaos.
Yeah.
Because in the Magos, in the Magos series, Eisenhorn, I think he has to deal with, or he's dealt with. He at least refers to a cult that are dedicated to a pig god or something like that.
Yeah,
it's something to do with pigs. But basically, underneath it all, when you get into the real nitty gritty of that cult, there's the trappings of a cornate, blood god cult there. It's just under so many layers that it just about passes as a backwater planet's kind of old folklore.
Yeah, I mean, and you can have cults that are dedicated to the Emperor, but the Inquisition just decide, no, that's wrong. You literally can have, no, we worship the Emperor as a sun god. Oh, yeah, it's the sun god bit we don't like, so that's Exterminatus for you. It's like, all right, cheers.
It's going to be really interesting, though, with that, because as you said, like, Eisenhorn barely meets like even a single Chaos Space Marine, let alone other Space Marines.
It's just one, isn't it? Who sort of runs
just
through the series. Yeah.
And that, I think, means like that's going to be such a huge moment on screen when that kind of moment occurs. I think that ties into what we've been discussing on like the forums recently about with the new Chaos release, the new Chaos Codex coming out. Coming back to the classic thing of a Chaos Army should just really be a warband, like literally a warband is like, at most maybe 10 or less Chaos Space Marines, and the rest is all cultists
100%.
and heretics and so forth.
The Lost and the Damned. Yeah, a Chaos Marine should be one of the scariest things you could possibly encounter. You'd just be like, oh god, these are the things that have turned. That would be, and that would be ideal. And I'm sure you can, especially with the new Codex coming that has what looks like a lot of cultist and traitor guard support, if you do want to run it that way. It looks like you have the ability to.
They got that traitor guard kit from the latest Kill Team, which is looking pretty good, because I mean that's basically spawned from the Blackstone Fortress designs. They're pretty much, most of them are Blackstone Fortress designs with a few tweaks, and heck, even the Traitor Commissar and the Ogren are from Blackstone Fortress. They're from the Traitor Command kit
supplement,
which it's like, oh god, I am still like chasing for that fucking outprint set. It's the only one I'm missing.
Did you get No Respite?
Oh, I've got all the other
No
ones.
Respite is awful to get hold of. My friend sprung for that because he had everything but No Respite, so he paid over the odds for it, and he fully accepts that for something that's just a repackage of Plague Marines. Because it was out for a week or two. Like, it was literally like, here you go, right, it's gone. What? Oh, okay. But yeah, Traitor Command, that's going to cost you a few quid now.
Though they seem to be flooding back onto the eBay market, mostly
Oh,
because the Commissar and the Ogred now are not
right.
going to be a limited thing, because they're going to be
Of course.
out in a box set.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That'd be good then. That would be nice actually if everything involved in Blackstone gets sort of folded in as a new, new things for 40k or Necromunda. But no, that's cool. And I think there's some really good stuff coming. I think that's what's fun at the moment. And I hope Eisenhorn does. He's a catalyst. Once it hits, maybe it's something bigger. Here is a impromptu question out of the blue for you.
Okay.
If you could have a 40k television series, what would it be? If you could entirely showrun it, they said, right, we've got a budget of millions. What story do you want to tell? What would you do?
Wow,
I
that's
know, right?
That's huge. I mean, I've started watching. I've watched the 3 episodes so far that are on Paramount Plus for Strange New Worlds, which is the
is it
Star
good?
Trek series.
No spoilers, but
It's
is it
good. It's
Good,
good.
okay.
It's really good.
Yeah,
I
looking
really
forward
like
to
it.
that. Okay.
So, I for 40k, I think it has to be about a rogue trader, just solid rogue trader. You
Rogue
can
Traitor.
no rogue
God.
trader, not a rogue
Oh,
trader,
God.
but
Oh, God.
he's a traitor. He's mostly a traitor
Yeah.
underneath it all. But I think with that you could sample a lot of the setting quite happily. In a way that's most probably quite familiar to people that watch sci-fi shows. Like they're going like, "Oh, you're in another world."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I mean, obviously,
Brilliant.
you would need to how you pack into a long hour with no adverts. The content of a single episode. So you might have to break up a story across like multiple episodes. I think that's what you'd have to do. But yeah, that's what I would go for.
That would be. That's very cool. I'd like a first-person show about Khan the Betrayer. It's just Khan the Betrayer, just slaughtering for 45 minutes a week. I'd just watch that. That'd be great. Be like, yeah, this please.
Well, that's interesting you say first person, because I think the other thing that's going to be a real interesting insight and what I am gearing up to buy a new PC for is Dark Tide.
Hey, that was a good segue, wasn't it? We didn't even mean that, and that worked really well. Yeah, right. It seems to be getting people seem to be buzzing for that.
It's interesting because like we're seeing a lot of videos for it, and obviously there's from what we know of the setting, I think there's a hive on this world. There's a hive called Tertium. It's called Tertium Hive on the world of Atoma Prime, and it's in this region of space. It's in a subsector or something.
Sure.
And basically, from what I understand of reading around, there's a group of a regiment of Astra Militarum that are raised like kind of return and have fallen to chaos, and that's just what precipitates the events of everything going to shit on that in that hive.
Right.
And so from the trailer, I think things are so desperate that an Inquisitor opens up recruitment to. It's the Dirty Dozen. It's penal legionnaires type job. Like. You're going to go into the hive, you're going to perform these missions, and if you don't die, then we'll clear your record, which is great. And I think you can play there's a lot of customization. You can play like an Ogryn, you can play Psychers and stuff. And I mean, again, we're getting to see a lot of like the environments of hive. Again, things that we've seen. I know it's not meant to be the perfect game, but like Necromunda hired gun, so again we're seeing recognizable features with that. It's gonna be it's a whole new world, literally.
So, excitingly in a way, I did the 40k escape room last week.
Oh right,
the Immaterium escape room, and they have done a bang up job of feeling what a 40k ship would feel like, and it's horrible. Like, they have done such a good job. I don't want to say too much because obviously spoilers, but it's so grotty and horrible. Like, you've got these sort of metal walls, but also bolted together with wood and stuff. And I mean all of this on purpose. And it is just like, yeah, it would actually be awful living in a hive or a ship. You just be like, this is terrible. Down to the point where they have one thing you interact with, which is actually a bit of terrain from Necromunda, replicated to human size. My friend who collects Necromunda was like, oh shit, I've got this. Like, he's got that as a piece of kit from one of the many terrain packs, and he was like, yeah, it's well, I'm not going to say what it is, but yeah, and it literally is now human size, and it's really fun that you're like, oh cool, this is what it would look like. This is ridiculous and horrible, and I hate it, and now I'm caught in a vent. Oh god. But I would recommend that. It's good fun. We would have had more time. We didn't get the best time doing it. We went with some people who weren't familiar with 40k, so I think we lost some times with my lectures and diagrams. I think when I made them sit down and discussed everything, the nature of the Emperor, Transcendent, etc. I think we lost a bit of time on that, but it was good. We got out. I didn't really do that. I should have done, but I didn't really do that. I did shout for the Lupercal every time we got through a room. So, but yeah. Speaking of absolution, we will get onto Necromunda eventually. But this is Realm of Fire. We don't do things in order. So I don't know. Are you familiar with the YouTuber Arbitorian?
Yes. I don't watch. I haven't really watched it, but I know he does a lot of the background material. Yeah.
Yes, he does, and he's been going through as a build up to the legacy each of the 18th legions. But he did a video on the 2 missing legions. Specifically saying we don't know anything about them, but it's interesting that one of them is missing and one of them is redacted. Like, one of them says there are no records for this, and the other legion, I think it's the 18th, is no, we don't talk about this legion, as opposed to we don't know anything about it. And Rick Priestley popped up in the comments, and I want to get your thoughts on this. What Rick said, though interestingly he didn't seem to say this at any point while playing, being in the design studio, was the reason for his idea for them, for the 2 lost legions, was that they did something terrible, maybe as terrible as turning to chaos, as the traitor legions, but they were then absolved of it. They then did something that meant they came back into the fold or redeemed whatever they'd done, and their reward was to have their name struck from the record. Basically, so their shame was forever removed from the records. So if you were the Thousand Sons will forever be known as traitors, but this other legion that maybe turned traitor is then never mentioned. I'm just interested what you think of that. It doesn't fit now really with the modern Horus Heresy background, because the Primarchs do talk about them a bit and do sort of make references to them. It doesn't quite equate to that. But I'd be interested to see what you think if that was an idea. Do you reckon that works? Do you reckon that's a good one? Do you reckon that's a bit of a cop out?
I mean, I guess it could have worked back when there were more holes in the setting to allow that. I mean, that could have potentially worked as a way of explaining perhaps like the origin of the Grey Knights, but obviously that isn't the origin of the Grey Knights. The Grey Knights are complicated.
Yes.
It might, you could possibly say that may relate to, I don't know, perhaps the root of absolution for one of the legions is what mostly creates the Legion of the Damned, that classic, classic group of Space Marines that always kind of comes in when the things are most desperate for the Imperium. I mean, it's an interesting idea. Not against it, but
I thought it was a fun one. I don't think it can really fit now, just because of how they're sort of talked about by the other Primarchs and stuff. It doesn't really fit, but I think it's a fun one. I think at least one of them was just wiped out, and in that style of the Emperor of the Rome 9th Legion, they were just said, right, their failure means that we'll never talk of them. Basically, they were so shit, we're not going to talk about them. They failed that badly.
Well, there's quite a few things that could have wiped them out anyway. Like in those early days, like waking up. Let's say waking up a Tomb World too early of Necrons, and Necrons
Absolutely.
back then would have been absolutely an unknown.
I think one getting lost in the warp wholesale,
Yeah.
and then the Emperor can't talk about it because he's hiding what the warp is. That would have to be they got lost. And maybe that's the Legion of the Damned. But that's the best bit about 40k. You don't explain
There's a lot
everything.
of holes, yeah.
So many holes. I'm really worried, and I promise you we're on to Necromunda after this. I'm really worried because I'm reading the Siege of Terror books at the moment, and I'm really worried that they're going to name the person that saves the spoilers. The Emperor kills Horus. But at the very end, someone intervenes and distracts Horus for a split second. That's kind of the crux of it, and it's always been an unknown, and I'm really worried they're going to codify it, and I will really hate that. That will make me so disappointed if we actually get that codified, because it was always cool when the guard said it was a guardsman, the Blood Angel said it was a Blood Angel, the Imperial Fist said it was an Imperial Fist. That's how it should always be. But hey, I don't know yet. There's 3 more books to go, and some terrible accents in the audiobooks.
Really?
Oh my god, they're really racist. It's awful.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
Jesus
not good.
Christ.
It's not good whenever the White Scars turn up and you're just like, oh wow, you're really doing the accent? Okay.
Wow.
So, Necromunda, eh? This is your baby. This is your thing, isn't it? Necromunda is your bag.
I mean, it's because it's always such a good it's a good source of inspiration for ideas of whether it's story or kind of character types or weird gribbly type things that exist in the Underhive. It's one of those things because like when because of the way Games Workshop IPs and work, we're for Cubicle 7, we're very much like writing about the Gilead system and the hives there, and so they're very different to they you can draw some inspiration from Necromunda, but it has to be distinct because they're basically different games. They're different parts of the world. They have to exist separately. They have to exist without knowledge of the other and basically persist in that way. So Necromunda's always a good, but it's always a good point of reference for like, does this make sense? Would someone like really use a gun this way, or what are enforcers like? Because enforcers exist on all, in some way on all Imperial worlds as a police force. And what do they do? What do they look like? It's a more recent thing with enforcers because classically it was always considered the Adeptus Arbites would be were basically the police force, but they're not. The way to understand it is that enforcers are the local police and the Adeptus Arbites are like the FBI. They work across worlds and across sectors, dealing with breaches of the of Imperial law. So
definitely,
Necromunda's cool in that sense, and I think it's changed. Like, I think it's the thing is when it first came out, people kind of like, oh, it's gonna just it's why should we get the new thing now? Blah blah blah, which is always the argument. Like, why should we rebuy this? What is different?
Yeah,
and I think first of all, it's an example maybe of where GW updated the rule system to feel a bit more modern with the turn sequence, and you see that with Warcry as well, with the I activate a model, then you activate a model, back and forth, and that makes it quite a tactical game. You don't get that classic issue of it's the whichever turn and your entire gang goes into Overwatch, and then it's the opponent's turn and they've got to activate their gang, and it's like they're not going to move out because they're going to get shot. Like, what's the point? You don't have that with the new system. And a friend said that because he wasn't too sure how deep to get into Necromunda until we played the game. He'd never played. I don't think he'd ever played the old. No, he never played old Necromunda.
Right.
He played. What was it called? Is it Shadow War? What was the Armageddon?
Shadow War Armageddon. Yeah.
He played that, which was effectively using the Necromunda revised rules, we'll call them.
Yeah.
But it's effectively second edition 40k. And he kind of was like, okay, that's great. And his opinion of New Necromunda is he wasn't too sure how much detail and so forth he would enjoy, but it was actually like it is just enough detail, by which he means it's so much detail that you almost can't get enough, because you've only got a few fighters, so having that level of granularity, and that it's so second edition 40k, because you've got hallucinogen grenades that have tables to roll on, you've got rules for if someone's set on fire and they'll run around, you've got rules for falling off buildings. It's just so detailed that when you play a game, even when things aren't going great for your gang, it's quite evocative because there is a story being played out.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair summation of it, that actually it is not a balanced game in terms of things like that. It can't be, but it's so much more fun than so many others, because something fun will happen, or not even fun, something tense, something, there will be that moment where you're like, God damn it, I need to get them across the board. Whereas you're right, the problem with old Necromunda has, I think, an unfair... I think people have a very twisted memory of Necromunda, the original, because, the hot take number 2, Necromunda wasn't that good. It actually wasn't that good as a game. It was very evocative in terms of some of the miniatures you got and the books and stuff, but as you said, what would happen by about game 4 of the campaign is everyone would set up for Overwatch. Maybe someone would make a break for a scavenge counter. Someone would open fire. Someone might get hit and fall off the edge. And then you go, well, I'm going to voluntary bottle. Because then it was worth voluntary bottling in order to roll on the rare traders chart. The game became the campaign rules as opposed to the actual game. The game wasn't very good. And I agree with you. I think New Necromunda really rewards the gaming element, that yes, even if you have a shitty game, even if you have that game where all your guns jam and it all goes wrong, it doesn't take long, and I do think that is something that shouldn't be overestimated, because you can always get another game in. It's the Warcry thing. If you can have a game of Warcry and it all goes wrong, you don't mind. You have a game of 40k and you roll like trash for 3 hours. You get angry. I defy anyone. I defy anyone to actually say, "Oh no, I always play with a smile on my face." After 3 hours of not being able to do anything, it's not fun. You're not having fun anymore. Whereas Necromunda, it can go wrong and it's still fun. Like there will always be that moment.
And modern Necromunda has quite a few good ways of balancing things out. I mean, always the classic is obviously, as the underdog, you're going to get extra XP. If you play with an arbitrator in a campaign, there are underdog scenarios there's an issue of White Dwarf that has underdog scenarios. So, there are scenarios which are designed for, if you are the underdog, you will get some advantage in the fight. The other thing which balances things out, because this was the real problem with also classic Necromunda, was that your gang could be up to 20 man strong, right?
Yeah.
And you could take them all into a game. You can't do that in modern Necromunda, because most scenarios are either select X, and X is hardly ever, I highly doubt, is generally 10 or less. So scenario will say choose 6 or choose 10, or it will be random selection, and by which I mean it'll be randomly select 10 or randomly choose a small or whatever smaller amount than that, and also often you'll get scenarios which are random selection or choose D6 plus 3. So your
9 is your most.
It doesn't matter that you've got 20. You've got a massive gang, or your opponent's got a massive gang. The weight of numbers can never be utilized, and I think that's just purely representative of the fact that in a gang fight, a fight going on, a gang is never going to put all its eggs in one basket, moving around like that. So smaller gangs will always utilize that to their advantage. That the They will never attack or never. There will never be that weight of numbers. I'm sure there are. I can't remember where. There's most probably a scenario somewhere in White Dwarf or somewhere which is like you're defending the gang's stronghold, right?
Right. So yeah.
But in
Bring
which
everyone
case,
kind
the
of thing.
arbitrator's going to say, like, right, this gang, one of the gangs of the campaign has got so big for its boots, you're going to go, right, for narrative purposes, that gang is now the target of everyone else. And everyone brings, like, a random selection of 6. And it balances out that there is, 20 gangers versus 20 gangers. It's just, there's 3 gangs versus 1 gang. And that's what it does. I mean...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, you're only going to get... I think it's a very small change that adds a huge amount of claustrophobia to the game.
Yes.
Because you do have 3 people running around, and you think, shit, I need to get these 3 people out alive. They're 3 of my gangers who I want to live. I think by zooming in the number, and as you say, because it's never over a dozen, is it? Unless, as you mentioned, you're playing a special scenario. You do start relating that bit more, and you are a bit more like, this is a 4-on-4 tunnel fight. This is a gross knife fight in a tunnel, basically, as opposed to a massive room with plasma gunners firing at each other. I think you're right. I think that reduction adds a level of claustrophobia that is vital to Necromunda.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the fact that Necromunda has now got 3 modes of play, because you can play Zone Mortalis, so that means you're just playing tunnel fights in effect, and it's 2D, so you are only moving in corridors. You can't move up and down. Though again, I think there's rules somewhere for tunnel fights that occur on multiple levels. So you can go to an elevator and it will take you to another level, but it's still a tunnel fight there. And
is that one done with squares? Sorry to interrupt. Is that one done with squares, or is that still measuring inches? And that I've never played that version.
It's still no. Zone Mortalis is still measured movement.
Right.
It's not. Okay. It's not grid based. It was never grid based.
No, I didn't.
Again,
I
think.
Yeah.
I think it was like that misconception when Necromunda Underhive first came out with the card tiles, and I still have the card tiles and that terrain, and I have the Bad Zone Delta card tiles. I have all the hazards on there because that's quite portable terrain.
Yes,
because it's just card. It's not huge. Lots of plastic. Even though the plastic Zone Mortalis does actually, it lends an extra element to the game.
Yeah. But yeah, if you want to take it on your holiday or take it to the club, it is quite nice. You can just pack a few tiles in the bottom of your tray, and that works.
But you have that, and obviously when you play on that scale, you can play a game which is basically a 2x2 board with all the corridors and doors in the way and barricades, and so that kind of type of fighting means obviously certain weapons aren't really that great to use in those confined spaces. Like a heavy stubber has got a very limited line of fire that you can't pin lots of people at once that are next to each other because it's just not possible. And with the turn sequence, it means it does favor close combat to a certain extent, but you can do shenanigans. Why pinning is so important. Like if you don't wound someone, they're pinned. Is so important to that rule set. And then you've got you've got Sector Mechanicus, so that's where you're playing a more open board. So you can still use the Zone Mortalis terrain, but now you're kind of really representing kind of like factories and so forth in their openness and with corridors and so forth that maybe lead into them. And the staircases. And I've got too much terrain now. Like I've got so much. Like a 3x3 board is densely packed. And of course, in those type of games, that's really good when you do have a lot of ranged weaponry. You can get some good lines of sight and can dominate the board in a way. And now, of course, we've got Ash Wastes, which is a different thing again because you've got such an open board and to move around it quick enough. Of course, we've got vehicles now. So we used to have Ash Wastes all the way back in, I can't remember. I think we had it.
The
as an
Fanatic
expansion
magazine
for
is
fir-
when they appeared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that an expansion for first edition or for the revised?
For the revised edition, yeah, around 2000 and something. That all hit when they had all the little magazines, the Gang War magazine that became Fanatic magazine, etc. Yeah, that's when that hit. With the
and that was really just a
metal
conversion.
models.
Yeah, and that was just a conversion of a port of the Gorka Morka rules, really.
Yeah.
So again, Ash Wastes is not that. It's not a port of that. It's clearly an evolution of that rule set, because just like your fighters in Necromunda, your vehicles, you activate a vehicle and they activate a model or a vehicle, and the vehicles get the same action economy, so they get two actions and you use that, and there's different maneuvers and things, and they've also got hit dice. So the classic injury dice for Necromunda, you get those for vehicles to determine where you hit on the vehicle.
Right, so you can hit the wheels or something like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and each area has a damage table. So
That's fun.
so it's very, again, it's quite granular in that sense. And yeah, I'm looking forward to start playing it. I've not played anything using the new rules yet, because I'm painting everything first. And
absolutely.
Also, it's a bit of a weird one. I mean, let's be honest. I think the new Ash Waste models are awesome. They're basically they're either Chaos Cultists or they're an Imperial Guard regiment waiting to happen. And there's rules for mounted, so on bugs or something else. So again, that kind of evokes the muties from Gorka Morka.
I thought of Cursed Earth from 2000 AD. Very much that kind of the horrible guys out there.
The thing we've got to address, which is the was Ash Waste as a box worth its value? That's always going to be a difficult one. Obviously, you can get discount at your local friendly gaming store.
Yes.
So the thing that sold it to me was because the terrain in there is completely compatible with Sector Mechanicus and Zone Mortalis. So on the bottom side of those HAB modules, there are the little slots that are the same on Sector Mechanicus, so that you can connect things together, which is cool.
That's really
then
cool. I mean, that's a lot of fun. Yeah.
The pillar heights, the support heights for the HAB modules can be done so they're either the same height as either one or two of the Sector Mechanicus. The Zone Mortalis blocks, the wall heights. So again, so everything's perfectly compatible in that sense. So these HAB blocks will look cool either as your HABs out in the Ash Waste on their platforms, or in a hive as a HAB block. So you can actually imagine now multiple of these HAB blocks stacked on each one on top of the other, because they do stack.
That's really cool. Yeah.
To be the HAB blocks. So that's kind of what sold it was the terrain.
Yeah. I think that's a good shout, because I think what would be more Imperium than you live in your place of work? Like, it would literally be, you can stuff them into your industrial terrain effectively, and it is the workers just live among the pipes and the stuff. Like, it's just like, why would they need to live anywhere else? I didn't realise they were so compatible, so that's really interesting that you effectively, it's the residential kit, right? Like, you've had the industrial kit, this is the residential kit.
And then the thing we have to kind of also acknowledge is the issue with we're gonna, now I haven't yet got my order through from of the Outland book and the Ridge Hauler, and I've got like a Ridge Hauler and the Goliath truck, and I've got Vansar on the grav cutters, all that arriving soon. I've got like, because Vansar are totally going to be on their hoverboards out in the Ash Wastes, like chasing down a Ridge Hauler. I will get the Ridge Hauler kind of expansion, the little trucks, the lorry trailer things that go on the back. But But there, I mean, again, price wise, it's not something you could go all out on initially.
No.
But the thing is, we have to acknowledge is with the Ash Waste rulebook, I think it's kind of that case of where it's about what you. It's a tricky one, and I think this is again, it's tricky because Necromunda has so much detail.
Yeah.
And if you had included more in the Ash Waste book, it would have been a really big book. And I think that would have pushed the price up a lot. And I don't think GW can absorb the cost of an Ash Waste book, having been that size in the same way they do with like the 40k rulebook or the Age of Sigmar rulebook in a core game.
Yeah.
Of the same price.
Yeah. I think you're right. See, I think the thing is, I have no dog in this fight in terms of the Necromunda box. I've not got it, and I do think if you get value from it, it's what I always think that. I think if you pay the money you're happy to pay and you get value from it, it's the right price. I think it's interesting because I think Heresy coming out 2 weeks later and being the same price, I think that made people be more angry at Ash Waste than they would have been, if that makes sense. I think the Heresy box being the same price with God knows how many more figures and a huge book that you could kill a man with, I think in a way that's made people more angry, but I think they're going to sell more of Heresy.
Yes.
So the production's going to pay off way quicker because Heresy, the box itself may even be a loss leader, but I was looking today, and if you want a Devastator squad of Space Marines, it's £70 for 20. Because you've got to buy the weaponry. So you've got to buy a box of 4 for 40 quid and then the weapons for 30 quid. So I think Heresy is an amazing initial box because it's the first hit. Ash Waste, you could just buy that and then stop, right?
Correct.
You don't need to get anything else for that. Yeah, that is something you could get. Do you get the Necromunda rulebook in there?
So yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. We because I've got it in front of me right now. So
cool.
Yeah, the Ash Waste book.
The
Ash Waste book has, let's just say, like it's got, you get the background of the Ash Waste, and it's expansive and details more of Necromunda than we've ever seen before. So in that respect, that's all relatively brand new material I've not read before. And this is the thing, like Necromunda is now so detailed, like we're talking role-play game levels of detail to a single city in, say, D&D. Like it's that level of detail that we have now, which is insane. So you get all the background material, and there's a cool map. That's the same map you can buy from Games Workshop that folds out, which is the map of the wastes around the Primus hive and the Palatine cluster. And that's a really cool map. I like maps. Again, they tell you so much about a place. Then, and you're right, you get all the Necromunda rules in here.
Cool.
So that means now I actually technically own 3 Necromunda rule books, because I have this one, the original hardback one. I got rid of the one from Underhive, the very first one, but I do have the one from Dark Uprising.
Ah, there you go.
Which, it's swings around about. It means I've got 2 rule books, so when I'm playing a game, at home, someone else can have a copy in front of them. That's easy enough. Then you get in here, obviously that means you've got the rules for vehicles and how that works. You've then got campaign rules, which is pretty much the same as always. You've got rules for psychers in here, which were originally extra rules in the book of... I want to say...
The Outcast?
I want to say the Book of Ruin, which included all the Chaos Cults, because that's where it becomes quite relevant.
Yeah.
So you get all the Psycho rules in here. Then you get the Ash Waste campaign. So that's a very specific campaign in this book, which is an Ash... And then you get Ash Waste scenario. So the Ash Waste campaign is basically I think now the 4th campaign type that there is in all of the books. So you've got like
so many, right?
You've got like the Dominion campaign, which is the classic kind of Necromunda grab territory type terrain.
Yeah.
You've got the one which is you've got the Dark Uprising campaign type, which is where you choose to be on the side of the uprising cult or whatever, or be on the side of order. There's the Law and Misrule campaign, which is kind of similar. And then I still think there's another one I've forgotten.
I think there is another one. I think from the original set, I think there's another one actually. But they're on.
But then in this
campaigns.
one,
yeah.
But then in this one, there is the Ash Waste campaign, and this one is kind of like a map-based campaign because you get an example map to use in the book, which is around when I find the page so I can look at it. Is around the Cinderak crater.
Okay.
So there's a crater that's kind of on this main trade route in Necromunda, or on Necromunda, sorry. And so there are you've got the map is got basically roads or sections of roads between different outposts, and the game is about taking control of the roads, and then in the second phase of the campaign, you can then start trying to steal sections of roads from rival gangs.
That's cool.
And then on top of that, on top of the running the campaign, you with the season cycle, you've got battlefield conditions as well. So you can say whether you're in the deep waste, the near waste, the wild wastes. You've got because you've got 2 phases to the campaign. You've got the season of flame and season of ash. So there's different environmental factors, like whether you've got ash clouds or lightning storms. You've still got rolling roads rules for certain scenarios, and that also, when you're playing rolling roads, there are 3 ways you play it. You assume either that the edges of the board are drop off down ravines.
Yeah.
The edges of the board are cliff faces, so you're in a little canyon, or they're open, and so if a vehicle or someone goes off the edge of the board, they can return at a later point. So there's just tons and tons and tons of stuff you can do with just this core book. So what I understand is the Outland book will include the rules update for vehicles, just the vehicle rules. So if you've already got the core book for Necromunda, you get that. You get the rules for you get the rules for the squat prospectors. You get the complete vehicle rules. So when I say the complete vehicle rules, this is the build your own vehicle rules. So you choose the body of vehicle, and then you can also spend credits or save up or get the bits from the trading post. So you can turn your vehicle into, it has tracks, or it has souped up engine, or and of course the Vansar get a discount on getting the equipment for this. Upgrade it to be a skimmer, and I'm just like, ooh.
God, they
I
always have to show off Vansar, don't they? They're always showing off.
There's a ton of stuff in there, and then I believe there's rules for a larger insectoid thing that the Ash Waste nomads can ride. So you know the Arachnarok from Age of Sigmar? From the Gobbos, from the Gits.
Yeah.
That with a Howder on the back of it, being ridden by Ash nomads firing off their RPG at people. Classic.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's wicked.
So
no,
I've gone in hard on it.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, if you are a Necromunda player, it's such a good. People have wanted Ash Waste ever since Necromunda started. People have wanted the Ash Waste, and I think it is great to see it finally. I just think there's so much. I was talking to Brendan on the last episode of Realm of Fire about this. How I think I would use the vehicle rules within Necromunda, but I love that the flexibility is just there. It's just the rules are there, so you don't even need to say we're playing Ash Waste.
Nothing.
You just say there's
nothing stopping
rules,
you from. No, there's nothing. And in fact, it says, I think it's in. Which one was it? I don't know if it was a Warhammer community article or something.
Right.
I know I definitely bloody read this, that there is no reason to just say vehicles can only operate in the Ash Waste. No, actually, I'm certain in the Ash Waste book, I'm going to look for it. I'm sure I've read it.
Sure.
It says you can use vehicles in the underhive or in the hive itself, and the only danger is you're going to it's going to be dangerous. You're going to
100%.
But you could do a rolling road and represent highways, or and there will be highways in the underhive or in the hive
Shit's
itself.
got to move. That corpse starch doesn't move itself. There's got
No,
to
it
be
doesn't.
transport networks. The corpse grinders have got to get those piles of bodies there somehow. Absolutely, there's going to be transport networks, and then you get to do those Mega City 1 style chases. With the arbitrators chasing you on bikes and stuff. I'm really glad they've finally done it in terms of a codified approach to here is vehicles in Necromunda. Looking at it, I'm only taking very, very small steps into Necromunda at the moment. Actually, might not even be using Necromunda rules, but I'll see about that. But I'm really enjoying the output, and I think I say this almost every episode, but I think if I did the hobby again, I would just play Warcry and Necromunda. I think I'd just stick with that,
I mean,
be honest.
I feel pretty much the same. I've still yet to play Kill Team.
Okay.
And again, I feel like that, so long as that plays well, I feel like that's enough 40k almost.
For you.
It's just a shame that we haven't had, we haven't had Kill Team rules that are as fully fleshed out for every faction yet, because the classic issue is the book they brought out, which covered all factions, is missing specific rules that the ones that have come out in other boxes get. So
absolutely,
it's a problem in that
it's
respect.
unbalanced.
But
it really
it will,
is, 'cause I'm sure they'll rectify it eventually. I'm not in the mood to wait at the moment. I think that's the thing. Whereas Necromunda, you can bang out and it's as balanced as it can be, which is it's not. So that's fine. But that's absolutely fine. Everyone is as unbalanced as each other, so it's fine.
Necromunda is never going to be a balanced game, and that's the thing which I think you have to kind of go in acknowledging. And this is the same thing which, having come from writing and designing things for D&D now, and so just to toot my own horn, the designing things for the Iron Kingdoms RPG, and there is a Kickstarter coming up soon for a new book, which I wrote on for that. The challenge there is that you can write D&D stuff, and the question is, do you need to worry about every other single book that is out for D&D? Now, you could also think the same way of like World of Darkness, and you think, is this balanced with everything from this other faction that also exists in World of Darkness? Is everything balanced? And the thing is like, sometimes it's great for that, and Chronicles of Darkness achieved that a bit because it comes from a basic core game of Chronicles of Darkness where you play mortals and it has rules for ghosts. Ghosts run the rules for spirits. That's all the same across the board. So anything that uses those rules all comes from the same point of reference. And with D&D writing, I was like, look, so long as this material works with the other books that have been produced for Iron Kingdoms and works with the rules from basic D&D, Dungeon Master's book, blah blah blah, I feel that's enough, because there are too many variables, and I don't have the time nor inclination to go through every single popular D&D expansion book and trying to count for every edge case where a player's going to go, I'm going to take this class, multi-class here, combine these powers together, which gives me a ridiculous action economy. It's like, I think sometimes that has to be that judgment call of going, no, screw that. As a player, I can't allow that in the game, because it just breaks the enjoyment for everyone else at the table. Yeah. And I think as players, you have to acknowledge that as well. I think that's the role of the GM. And so bringing that back to Necromunda, I think that's also the same thing, because if I look at my bookcase, there is the Necromunda rulebook, there's the now defunct Gangs of the Underhive hardback, which has all the 6 main gangs in. There's now also, and I need to get every single one, I've only got the Van Saar book right now, is the gang books, which add a whole load of other bits in there. Then you also have the Book of Ruin, the Book of Peril, the Book of Law, the Dark Uprising rulebook, which has a campaign in there. You've got the Ash Waste book, which has a campaign in there. You've got all these books, right? And oh yeah, it's the Book of Judgment, not the Book of Law, Book of Judgment.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
So there's so many options across the board that it's impossible to account for everything to do full balance, because there's going to be some combination that, if it's allowed, is going to break the game and break enjoyment in the campaign for everyone.
Yeah.
But that's the role of an arbitrator, to go like, oh, I can see this as being like, this is leading the campaign to be a bit unfair. And you just gotta have the balls to say to that player, look, we're gonna have to, we're gonna have to nerf that.
Yeah.
I'll give you something you can swap in and out, get something else for your gang that kind of has the same, that you can use the rules for that instead. It just that this combination is really just killing the campaign. Or you just have to also say, look, we can't use every book. Like, you can't use all of the stuff out of the black market in Book of Judgment, and then all the stuff in another book, and then all the other stuff. It's just, there's too many options. And so you kind of have to define your campaign. But that's the same as a
100%.
roleplay game.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as a roleplay game, and I totally agree. You need to say, we're using this, we're not using this, X, Y, Z, because otherwise it's a headache for anyone in the campaign, but also it just makes it more fun, and also it gives you a bit of fun in terms of, you could say, well, this shit's on the black market for the next 2 months of real time, and then we're going to switch the black market up. You can actually, by bringing stuff in and out, make the campaign even more interesting, because shit comes available or goes out of fashion, or maybe there's more enforcers on the street for a while because the governor's been told to, and then in the next phase of the campaign there isn't. You can really use that flexibility and limitations to run the campaign to a great pace. I think it's got a lot to let you pace it how you want to. And Necromunda's always been broken, because it used to be D6 plague zombies for 10 credits for scavies, and it was ridiculous because you'd drop 50 credits and you could have up to 30 plague zombies. It was stupid and ridiculous.
Well, that wouldn't even be viable in the new.
No, not even viable,
rules.
not even possible.
I mean, I'm sure they'll figure something out. I mean, we've still got tons still of the Underhive to explore.
So much.
I mean, we still
we
don't have muties back yet.
Nope.
We don't have
no scavies.
Spyro Hunters.
Spires. Yeah.
We don't have rat skins, but then I think we're not going to see them.
I think they're going to be redone. I think they'll be redone completely differently. Yeah, not even called rat skins. There will be, I think, hive native kind of thing, but yeah, they're not going to do that. So I think we should wrap up, but I've got a big question for you. Right, so it's 3 thumbs up for Necromunda from us because we're mutants. But here is the big question. What is your favourite miniature in the whole of the modern Necromunda line?
Oh, Jesus, that's a...
I should warn you, there is a right answer to this. It's gone quiet.
Well, actually, I do know. I think I know which I will pick, because he, as miniatures look, he's pretty boss. We will go with the... I can't remember its name, but we'll go with the squat with the bolt gun and the power hammer.
He's called like Bjorn Bjornsson, isn't he? He's got a very old squat name, hasn't he? Yeah, that is a wicked miniature. The correct answer is, of course, the Cawdor Bomb Rats. The Cawdor Bomb Rats the best thing, because it's a rat with dynamite stuck to it. Absolutely brilliant. Well, that's great. I mean, I'm excited to play Necromunda because I don't get to play it that much, and my friend has a whole collection that we're ready to play with, and we should play. We need to meet up and play some games.
Yeah, we need to start doing that. I think the moment I've finished learning to drive and I passed my test, that will be a lot easier, because it would be nice to go down to Warhammer World and play there, and I can bring terrain. But
oh my god, they've also got such a good IP table. They've got one of those tables where when you finish, you've lost a miniature. When you go, god damn it, I forgot that guy behind the pipe.
But yeah, also keep a weather eye on pandemiciness, because it's such a... But yeah, we'll figure it out.
Unfortunately, Ace, well, thank you for the rebirth, for the taking us in your fold into the Darkhammer family. We have been put on the anvil of apotheosis and reformed. And here's to many, many more episodes where we just wax lyrical.
What have we got planned as things to cover coming up? I mean, I guess we'll have to talk some more about Warcry. Heresy.
Warcry, Black Library chat, good Black Library books, good ins. We kind of covered it with Eisenhower in a way, but there's a lot more to chat about that. The continuing story of Age of Sigmar, what's going on now? Kragnos is back, or even the non-continuing story. Have GW put the brakes onto Warcry? What's going on? Not Warcry,
Warcry's
Age of
got
Sigmar.
new stuff coming up, hasn't it?
Yeah, for the Age of B. Sorry, I meant the sort of the overall story. They've sort of pumped the brakes a little bit since Kragnos has come back. It's kind of not much is going, but we'll uncover that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, yeah, we've got like opinions on what the new Sylvaneth stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah, those boys. Yeah,
pretty cool
that.
Models. One page rules, which I've not played. That's interesting.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
I'm sure there's some discussion at some point to be said about some other wargaming stuff at some point, because that might fit under the kind of discussion. I really need, I've read it, it's good. I need to paint some at some point, and I'm trying to get through my backlog. But Batman Miniatures game, I do like the current rules of. I've not played it yet.
Right. Well, yeah.
Pandemic's for you.
My friend's got a big collection of that as well. Anyway, great. Okay. Yes, well, thanks very much, Chris, and thanks for listening, everyone, and for following us over to Darkhammer, and we'll see you all soon. Next time we might even have a Brendan with us just yelling at us about, I don't know, freedom and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. All right, see you guys.